Yujiro Hanma and Jack Hanma walking down the street together, yapping about strength, Hanayama being built different, Jack's evolution throughout the story, and much more in Baki Rahen chapter 41. A peak chapter this week, boys. Something that tends to occur anytime we get Yujiro walking with someone down the road, guaranteed greatness, and honestly is sometimes more enjoyable than fights, particularly with this wacky father-son relationship, once again being used as more build-up for their future fight in the current manga. But the question is, how did we get here? Jack was trying to revive and recover before his Hanayama fight, until the ogre just appears in his room to talk about Masashi, well at first, then discussing Hanayama, who Yujiro is very familiar with. So let's break down everything you need to know. So right away we see that Yujiro is curious of what Jack actually knows about Hanayama, which for everyone's knowledge he knows absolutely nothing. Recently in the story they had their first ever interaction, a scene that revealed to us that Jack didn't even know who Hanayama was. Don't know how that is actually the case to this day since both of them were fighting in the maximum tournament, but technically they never had an interaction prior to that, and I guess Jack just wasn't watching the fight during that arc as well and never met one another, regardless of Hanayama pretty much being Baki's best friend at this point. But let's see what goes on here. Jack's response is, "It's a little cramped in here, let's get some air," resulting in them now walking down the street, where Jack reveals that is it a bad thing to know nothing, where Yujiro spends the majority of this chapter pretty much glazing Hanayama or giving Jack some much needed insight, which does portray Hanayama as an absolute monster in every regard. For example, the ogre outright says that Hanayama is extraordinary, absolutely wild and next level glaze from the ogre, all things considered, resulting in Jack to reply with that there's people out there, men who exist in a world beyond all reason, claiming that there's a prime example here, potential subtle shots at the ogre once again like they did during their prior dinner. But he also says dad directly to Yujiro, which is still very crazy to see and unexpected, but it looks like that's going to be a common trend regardless of Jack's overall goals when it comes to defeating or maybe even killing his father. Endless rage associated with that. But then we have a whole little scene of Jack talking about data, which is a little bit of a contradiction as he doesn't want or doesn't have any reason to gather information about Hanayama before their fight, data about him, which is mostly due to Jack's confidence in his own strength, not requiring anything like that to claim the victory, and of course people like Yujiro are just coming to him to explain stuff. But we do have the ogre talk about the insanity Jack has done to himself over the years, all of the height lengthening surgeries, and now most recently the titanium teeth, which had all his teeth removed, or I guess you could say had them destroyed by the likes of Pickle, then Motobe, until getting these as the major replacements, highlighting that Jack is pretty data driven, the pretty much biting cyborg in the series, but even him is still somewhat different, relating to something I never thought would be brought up again in the series, the fact that Jack claimed back during the maximum tournament that he trains 30 hours a day. This was believed to be like a mistranslation, but it's even in the older anime, Jack somehow someway trains 30 hours a day, resulting in Yujiro to say this: training 30 hours in one day, if that isn't pure fantasy, leaving Jack stunned, which was pretty much my reaction when I saw Yujiro actually mentioning this from long ago. I'm surprised Itagaki actually remembered. But then the ogre says this: with just an increase in intensity, you can get results worth 30 hours in only 24. It's a method everyone uses. Perhaps the ogre's subtle way of talking shit about Jack's training style here, but I'm still in pretty much major shock that this was brought up once again. the insanity of Jack Hanma, the fantasy of Jack Hanma may not actually be fantasy all things considered, but then the ogre talks about Hanayama and his connection to strength, claiming that the Yakuza is keenly aware of the fact that he was born strong, the common trend between him and Yujiro as we saw during their interaction at the start of the Masashi arc. You could almost say he feels he owes a debt, but that is strength in its own right. Hanayama, as highlighted in his Masashi fight, is different to everyone else in the baki world. He was depicted as nothingness or pure white, someone born with strength who doesn't even train and, as we know, has seemingly gotten stronger throughout the series. There's, two sides in the fandom. Some believe Hanayama does train due to some panels. Based on the most trusted translations, it's likely he doesn't train, but is still up in the air. The thing that makes Hanayama's strength so powerful is he's insanely aware of his own strength. That's why when we get moments of all the other Baki characters training, bro is literally just sitting in the bar and is able to be on par with all the other wild creatures. But now we got some hints about what's going to occur during the Jack and Hanayama fight. The ogre praises Hanayama's grip strength, something he didn't do for Sukune all things considered. So while the sumo boy may have the best grip strength feat, it seems like Hanayama's portrayal is going to be much higher than that moving forward, with the ogre glazing his grip to a next level degree, something that actually gains Jack's immense attention and has him laughing, revealing this in the final panel of the chapter, that he will crush Hanayama's fist in between his teeth. He will defeat Hanayama's insane grip strength with his biting Gaodao, which likely means that Jack will indeed be biting throughout this fight, something based on their interaction in the underground we weren't too sure about, as Jack was pretty much talking shit, claiming that he could defeat Hanayama without the need of biting. But it seems as though with this conversation with the ogre and Yujiro revealing all this information about Hanayama, Jack is definitely more excited and more serious going into this fight, willing to give it his all and use his Gaodao. On top of the glaze Yujiro was providing for Hanayama, I am much more excited for this fight and think it's going to be absolutely wild. Now boys, I need some help. Check out my breakdown of all 3 Pickle and Jack fights, as we just got some updated translations for various things you guys need to be aware of. And unfortunately the video isn't doing too well. Also consider becoming a member like these legends. Supporting that way allows me to continue bringing you guys content on various fighting manga greatness, which may be more so required these days due to YouTube's new ad related features, ruining a lot of internal stuff for the channel. But regardless, thanks for watching today's video.